So my name is Hani Tabsh. I work for Refraction Asset Management. We're a Canadian family office based out of Calgary, Alberta. And one of our wholly owned subsidiaries is TIU Canada, which focuses on renewable energy and investments in Ukraine in general. We started looking at Ukraine back in probably 2012, 2013 with some public equity investments. And as of 2016, when the Canadian-Ukrainian Free Trade Agreement got ratified, and there was a big promotion for it in Toronto, Mike Yurkovich, our president, was there, and he introduced with the SPFU at the time and saw a number of different opportunities in Ukraine. And so since that point, we've looked much closer at making direct investments in Ukraine. So we started TIU Canada as the vehicle to do that for our fund in 2016. And as of 2017 in May, we bought our first set of project rights for a renewable power plant, a solar power plant in Nikopol. And we were constructing that over the course of the back half of 2017. We opened the plant in January of this year. And since February 1st, we've been generating full time and generating revenue off of the solar power that we produced for the city of Nikopol. The plant itself is 10.5 gigawatts of, megawatts of capacity. Now that translates into enough power for a city of Nikopol size, you're gonna have to forgive me because I'm trying to remember back to our press materials. It's either 2,400 or 24,000 homes that we can supply power to from our power plant on an ongoing basis. Now, the nice thing about solar is that apart from the current footprint that we have with just putting the solar trees up in the land base that we have, when our land lease is over, 25 years from now, we can pull that out and there's going to be no impact that's going to be left on that land. So if we do continue with the plant there and extend our land lease, then we have to simply replace the panels and we can continue generating nice, clean, renewable power. And in the event that the land is used for something else, we can take away the investment that we've made and return the land back to the original leaseholder and leave it with a new development that can be put there as well. For a city of Nikopol size, our plant isn't big enough to supply all of the energy needs for it. Obviously, you can build more scale, and then you could supply a city of Nikopol size with more power plants and more power overall. That wasn't our goal when we set up the investment in the first place. We just got very favorable terms to be invested there and to be involved in that area. And the partners, we look for quality economic investments, but we also look for the right partnerships, both on a local and kind of federal level, and from our contractors to make sure that this is an investment that overall makes sense. And the city of Nikopol has been very favorable and very friendly towards our investment, and they've been very excited that we've been interested in coming down to develop a plant there. Subsequent to our investment, there's now at least 4 other plants in the vicinity that are looking to get under construction in the course of 2018. So while we kind of looked at it and said, this is a great place, others have now followed our lead and said, yeah, Nikopol is a great place to do some more investment and some more development with, which is exactly what you want to see. And that message is something that we'd like to convey to other jurisdictions within Ukraine as well, that if you are receptive and friendly to investors that are going to be coming to take a look in your areas, you will attract further follow-on investment as others recognize which are jurisdictions that are good to work with and which ones are more difficult to work with. We looked at Ukraine and we see an environment where there's a lot of economic opportunity and there's a lot of really qualified, intelligent, strong-willed people within Ukraine that we have a market where we really want to be involved in. And renewable power is a market that we're involved in across the board globally in all the different areas that we look at. In Ukraine in particular, it's a very compelling investment. And we found that this was the easiest way for us to get started in the Ukrainian market with a direct investment and to grow our footprint over time as we do more and more business here. We think that there's a massive mispricing and misunderstanding of the risk profile of Ukraine in general. And there's a stigma that's associated with putting capital at risk in Ukraine because people don't understand what the risk actually is. And you really can't understand it from afar. You have to be there, you have to walk the streets, you have to talk to the population to really understand it. And as you do that, you'll find that it's really not as risky as you think it is from the distance. Now, the easiest analogy is when I first came to Ukraine, my mom was terrified. This was in 2016, in the fall of 2016, and she said, "You're crazy, there's a conflict going on over there, are you going to be safe, what's going on?" Please call me every day. And honestly, it was scarier reading about Ukraine in the newspapers than actually walking around in Ukraine. And you don't understand that until you are physically here. And that's the biggest misconception about everything, is that it's very easy in today's digital age to think you understand something because you've seen an internet post or read a newspaper article, or there's been a video that you've seen of some terrible event happening somewhere, and you take it as granted, as opposed to actually doing on the ground research and diligence that you need to do. I mean, one of the biggest things that Ukraine has commented on for quite some time now is energy independence. And energy independence is something that the country desperately needs, and that the country as a whole and the government of the country has to support and is supporting to make that happen. The easiest way to get that energy independence is by developing the resources that exist within Ukraine, and there's an abundance of natural resources that exist within Ukraine. There's complications with developing some of those existing resources because they're spoken for things like the natural gas resources that exist in Ukraine. However, something like renewables, there is a kind of opportunity that still exists now where you can come in, find some good land, and harness either sun or wind energy and provide that directly into the grid. And you can make fairly compelling economic returns, and that's where the government's really supporting this by providing a tariff structure that encourages businesses like ourselves to take a look at Ukraine and say, listen, renewables is an industry we want to be part of. Ukraine is a market we'd like to be part of. And the government is supporting this investment by providing a tariff regime that is high enough to justify the risk profile of us being involved in developing an asset here. The bureaucracy and the process of doing it's all the same, but with any of these things, it does come back down to the people, and some are easier to work with and some are more willing to work with you than others. And paperwork is paperwork. It's how quickly and how efficiently can you get through that paperwork, and that's where when people are motivated and they really want something to succeed, they help you out to make sure that happens. No, there's definitely competitors. I mean, we've noticed a market uptick in interest in renewable energy in Ukraine over the last 6 to 9 months. When we started looking at this market back in December of 2016 on the generation side, there were very few people that were even remotely interested in developing renewables in Ukraine. And over 2017, that got a little bit more interesting. And now we've seen significant interest in especially the southern parts of Ukraine, where you've got very good solar conditions, and where off the coast you can get some very good wind conditions as well. We've seen significant investments being made and parties coming through and funding previously stalled projects and coming in to buy new projects altogether and say, we'd like to be part of this market. Now, part of that's a stability of Ukraine in the sense that when there's not a lot of noise, then everybody assumes that things are a lot better. And lately there hasn't been a lot of noise. That's been helpful. At the same time, there's also just an understanding over time that it was never as bad as it seemed in the majority of the country, despite there being an ongoing conflict in localized parts of the country. And that's not to take away from the conflict itself, simply just acknowledgement that the conflict does not span the entire country, it's regionalized. I mean, it doesn't directly affect us in the sense that the areas that we're working in, there isn't a war going on. That doesn't mean that the country has instability that's a result of the conflicts, but it doesn't have a direct investment on us per se. Now, it's obviously something to keep an eye on, and it's obviously a risk factor that's involved, but a lot of different companies will not even consider a country if there's any conflict anywhere within the country. The whole thing is just roped off as, no, this is off limit. And we have the flexibility where we can consider that on a more nuanced level and look at it much more localized, which is great because to me and to our firm, Ukraine is still a compelling investment opportunity. The renewables market in Ukraine right now makes up about 1.5% of the total power that's generated in Ukraine between wind and solar. If you include hydro, you can get numbers around 6% of the total energy stack for generation. Now, Ukraine's government has said that they would like to have by 2020 about 10 or 11% of the overall energy produced being renewable energy. That's unlikely to happen without significant investment over the next 2 years, which is just going to be difficult to accomplish under the best of circumstances. But it does go to highlight just how much support and interest there is in developing renewables as an industry within Ukraine. Now, we've established ourselves as one of the premier foreign players in this market by simply being here before everybody else, understanding the landscape, understanding the jurisdictions that you want to operate in, understanding the localized issues that come along with grid connections and which parts of the country already have too much or not enough renewable energy available to be able to produce. We also have relationships on a local, municipal, state, and federal level from our time being here to understand how to navigate the approval process and just position ourselves to ensure that our projects can successfully move forward. All of which allows us to continue to develop our pipeline in country. And we're looking at developing another 30 to 50 megawatts of construction this year in 2018. And then obviously bringing in other partners to work with us on larger projects over the balance of 2018 and 2019. Now, a lot of that is going to depend on how strong the solar and wind tariff regime stays. And that renewable tariff is from the government supposed to stay until the end of 2019 before it steps down again. So provided that the government continues to honor its pledges, which it has done so far, we have another year and a half worth of serious building season that we can get done and build a number of different projects, which we're actively trying to take advantage of because we do think that Ukraine is at a kind of turning point from an economic perspective that allows that further investment to continue and make sense. The big thing that we're looking at is saying that right now, one of the major problems Ukraine has is that it doesn't have a stable power infrastructure in place that will allow other industries to develop. And if you don't have power, then how are you going to have a manufacturing base? How are you going to encourage other businesses to come and invest money in Ukraine if they don't even have a stable source of keeping the lights on? And so by supporting that industry, we're looking at it and saying, this is a much larger, longer term play on the country of Ukraine, because as soon as you can get that energy infrastructure in place, you can now see further significant develop for the rest of the economy as a whole. And further economic development will lead to higher power prices as you have increased overall demand for power. The big thing that we have seen with Ukraine in general is that there's a very motivated population that's very interested in bettering themselves and improving their country and improving their individual lives. They're very well educated and they're extremely hardworking. And if you can marry that kind of environment with investment dollars, then you should have a very strong platform for success. And we're relying as much as we can on the local talent and the local population that's here to try and take advantage of that desire and that skill set that's just natively here. And we're providing the capital to do that, which is the risk that we're taking. And we're making an economic return accordingly, and that's fine. But the big picture in all of that is that there is so much opportunity here if you're willing to take a look and if you're willing to do the work on the ground. And there's so much interest from the local population here in just encouraging anybody that has a capital base to come and take a look. And you absolutely should. If you have the capital base to look at it, we encourage everybody to come take a look. For us, it really is a matter of the stronger that we can make Ukraine and the better we can make people understand Ukraine, the more compelling that our investments are, both for ourselves and for other parties that should be involved here, which makes our investments better off. So we've found over time that we're not actually selling TIU Canada or Refraction. What we are selling is Ukraine, because people can't wrap their minds around investing in Ukraine. And once you can get around the Ukraine component, the rest of it's easy. But understanding that Ukraine isn't what you originally think that it is, that's where most people get stuck. And unfortunately, that's just wrong.